Hello, everyone. I am Drew Duncan, and this is the Sync 57 Sports Show. Plenty to get to today. We're going to be talking about the ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips saying that the CFP should be primed for 12 teams by 2024. We're going to be talking about Draymond Green. According to Steve Kerr, he will not get suspended. And we're going to be taking a look at the Bears taking on Washington matchup tonight for Thursday Night Football. All right. Let's get into it. First of all, hate to say I told you so, but I definitely told you so. I knew there was going to be a lack of punishment here to Draymond Green. This is not about favoritism in the league towards Golden State. This is not about favoritism towards Draymond Green, that's for sure. We've seen that over and over again in the playoffs, him getting suspended, right, per the league rules about how many technical fouls you can get before you get suspended in the playoffs. So we know that it's not favoritism towards Draymond Green. It is exactly what I said it was the other day. Two grown men had an altercation, a shove, a right cross, and we're done. According to Steve Kerr, there's been conversation after conversation, yada, yada, yada. Whatever, man. Like I said, two grown men, they handled it internally. It's exactly what they were going to do. Folks, whether you like it or not, it's the way that it is. Every now and again, men get into fights. And I'm really damn sick and tired of pretending that our athletes are not human beings. Draymond's a guy. Jordan Poole's a guy. They're red-blooded, man. They're not robots that just walk around doing whatever you want them to do. Look, I understand. You got to be an example to kids. I get all that, okay? But hey, if your kid sees this, have a conversation. I don't want you to start something, but if somebody gets in your face, this is how you finish it. Square it away and leave it at that. We don't bring other things into it. Nobody comes back for more. Nobody comes back with a crew of guys to jump people. Nobody comes back with weapons. You fight another day, my man. If you're going to get into it, this is how you get into it, period. Pretty simple conversation to have. Okay? So the very fact that there is little punishment here towards Draymond tells me that the league themselves have looked at this and said, it's just two guys doing what they got to do. Nobody would have even known if that tape hadn't leaked out, probably. You know, think about that for a minute. It's just, I've talked about this so many times, the locker room and the gym being a sacred place. But it is 2022, and it's not so sacred anymore. When you have camera phones everywhere, when you can download apps to record any and every conversation that you want to, people learn how to edit. It's crazy to me. I went to college to learn how to edit, to learn how to do all these things. And now just about everybody's a whiz. Insane, right? It's almost as if, what did I study mascot for sometimes, man? It did me some good. Don't get me wrong. It did do me some good. Believe me what I tell you. But the point of what I'm saying is, man, is when we've got phones anywhere and everywhere, anything and everything can be revealed. And it's the way of the world. It's the way that it is. If this was 1995, we probably never even know about it. Something major would seriously have to leak. You know, there were instances when I remember very vividly growing up. It's like, why isn't so-and-so playing? Like, what happened? And, you know, they would just tell the media, oh, you know, it's an internal thing and yada, yada, yada. And I mean, that would be it. They could probe all they want to, but as long as everybody kept their mouths shut, nothing got out. And I have been so surprised at how Bill Belichick has been able to maintain that with the New England Patriots. You want to talk about a tight organization where things hardly ever get out in terms of what they do inside of a locker room. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about all the scandals and yada, yada, yada? That is with deep probing, man. It is not something that just comes out like that. Believe me when I tell you. As somebody who's been in this business for a very long time, I can assure you it is deep probing. Regardless, the fact of what I'm saying is we do know about it. We all saw it. And Draymond is not going to get suspended. Why? That's right. You guessed it. 2 grown men. Things happen, guys. Whether we like it or not, it is what it is. Okay? So let's everybody move on. Steve Kerr says he expects him at the practice facility today. And as of the moment this is being recorded, I don't know if they've had practice or not yet. I'm sure something will come out later on today or whatever. And then he said that he fully expects him to play the last preseason game of the year tomorrow, which is Friday. So there's that. All right. The ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips says that we should have a CFP by 2024. What the hell are they trying to figure out? I mean, seriously, what is there to figure out other than the only thing I can wrap my head around why we can't get this thing done for next year is they're trying to minimize the schedules. I've always said for the longest time, of course now, Dabo has been saying it in Clemson, but I was saying it long before he ever came out with it. It's documented that what you do is you go back to 9 or 10 games in the season. It minimizes all these weak out of conference games. It'll tighten up the schedules, right? And it'll be mostly about in-conference play. You'll have your conference champions. You have your top 12 or 16 teams in the Power 5 conference champion automatically in. You're going to get the Cincinnati's in of the world, no problem. You're going to get, the Boise's of the world in, no problem. At least this way you should. A Coastal Carolina, somebody like that should be able to come in. A Houston, right? Houston team we saw 12-1 go and beat up on Florida State. Okay. You give those teams an opportunity now. To me, that's the only thing that they could be doing is minimizing the game. So you're going to have to, reset the schedules a little bit. And then the other thing that I could obviously surmise is that they're probably looking at, where we're going to have the bowl games. Well, it's really not that hard. You take your biggest bowl games, your 6 biggest bowl games, and you have the playoffs there. And honestly, it's time to get rid of a lot of these other bowl games anyways, right? You have to win 6 games to be bowl eligible, yet we still see teams with 4 and 5 wins playing in bowl games because there's 40 bowl games. Why, bro? We don't need them. Not everybody gets a trophy, all right? If the league standard, and when I say league, I mean NCAA, is 6 games in order to automatically be bowl eligible, I understand the wording, but that's what it should be. If you can't be 500, you can't play in a bowl game. Why? Why are we having it? We need to cut. I mean, I'm telling you right now, we could cut out probably 10 bowl games, no problem. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have bowl games outside of the CFP because we absolutely should. If you win 7, 8, 9 games, and obviously it's probably not going to be good enough to compete in the CFP, in some situations it might prevail to be so. But for the most part, if you win 7 or 8 bowl games, that's a good season. Right now you're at 8-4. Right? So for the year, you're at 8-4. There's no reason that those teams shouldn't be able to compete in a bowl game. Okay? But I think it's obvious. You take your Gator Bowls, et cetera, some of the other ones, the Cotton Bowls, you just run up the money on it. The Cotton Bowl's not going to lose prestige if you still have the Big 12 versus the SEC in there. 2 teams that are, 8 or 9 wins. And then on top of that, you've got a CFP matchup. To me, you're doubling down. Not really sure all this is quantum physics. Again, it's one of those things where I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, boy, we're going to see a lot of hair split. And I understand that we need to be ready for any and all situations. Okay. And I know that that's what they're preparing for, is being ready for any and all situations, which is fine, but what did they think that this 4-team playoff was ever going to prove? I screamed from the rooftops that 4 teams was nonsense. At that time, you still had 120-something teams in Division I college football. You really think you could narrow it down to 4? Now there's over 130. I've always believed you just simply take your top 16 teams and just say, okay, Power 5 guys, conference champions are already in. And then because after about, 15 or 16, it's pretty much the same ball team anyway, as far as the top 25 is concerned. From about 17 to 25 is really all about the same caliber team. Really is. At least by that point in the season. I'm not talking about beginning of the year. I think I've already talked till I'm blue in the face about that. I still hate this ranking stuff at the beginning of the season. I don't think we should have rankings until week 8, and we shouldn't have CFP rankings until week 12. By then, I think we have a far better idea of who is who. At least we should. So there's that. I just not really sure what's taking so long. The initial projection was for 2026. They had already released the schedule for 2026 for the playoff, but I think it could be done by 2024. It really shouldn't be a problem. It needs to happen fast. Look at the type of season we're having. Like I said, I think it's very feasible that we may run into a situation where we see a 2-loss team in the CFP this year. I don't think it's necessarily out of the realm at all, actually. All right. Let's take a look at Washington and Chicago tonight. Carson and company haven't ran the football very well. In fact, Gibson, their leading rusher, has only got 179 yards. But Justin Fields hasn't really shown that he can beat you with his arm yet, right? So they've relied heavily on that running game with Herbert, I think nearly 400 yards this season. They've relied heavily on that defense. The most points that they gave up was to Minnesota. That was 29. Other than that, 10, 12, and 20? So the defense is playing well, very well, as a matter of fact. So here's what it is. If I'm Washington and I know that Chicago's got a couple of corners out, I'm just going to play huck-and-chuck football. I'm going to let Wentz throw it all over the place. I want to get up fast, and I want to keep pushing it down their throats. I want to turn Chicago into a one-dimensional football team to where they have to abandon the run game. They get down, 21-0 real quick, 14-0 even. They start to abandon that run game. They lose their patience. You make Fields try to beat you with his arm. That's not going to happen. 3 TDs, 4 picks so far this year, if I remember correctly. So you just force him to be one-dimensional. You pin your ears back, you bull rush, you blitz from all different angles, you stun up front, and you call it a day. You walk out of there with a 28-35 win. You don't ever let them breathe. You figure out ways to keep that defense off of you, stay a little bit balanced. In order to counter that, obviously, you run some screen plays, you run some flat outs, you run some quick outs, you run some quick ends, you run some drags. That way you force them to creep up a little bit, kind of use it like a run game. And then after that, boom, you hit them deep. And we all know Wentz has the cannon. Pretty simple. I don't think it's going to be anything overly complicated tonight in terms of what we're going to see really from either football team. From Chicago, we may see some reverses and a couple of things like that. And I'm not really sure it's going to work out. Justin Fields doesn't have a horrible offensive line. Nothing like what we've seen in Denver and Philly and Kansas City over the years, at least. He's had time to throw. He's just made some very bad throws, some poor decisions. I understand it's still very early in his career, okay? But in terms of the way he's playing right now, if I'm Washington, I step on the gas pedal. I want the ball first. To hell with that getting it in the second half stuff. I'm trusting my offense to be able to score on that defense. Minnesota put points up on them. You're looking at a very similar team in Washington. All right. Wentz has thrown a lot of interceptions this year, 6. So I'm telling him, hey, man, just be careful with the football today. If it's not there, get out of the pocket and run for a few, or just chuck it out of bounds. But we want to step on the gas. I'm going hurry up all the way, and I'm not giving that defense a chance to breathe. I don't want them, rotating guys in and out. As long as you don't huddle, the defense isn't allowed to huddle and switch guys out. So there you go. You just step on it. You don't let up. You try to get up quick and fast. You make them one-dimensional, And that's all there is to it. You make Fields be a quarterback and beat you. He's not that guy yet. The most points that Chicago has scored this year, 22, 23. Other than that, they've relied on a lot of defensive touchdowns to win them ball games. A lot of interceptions, the defense creating turnovers so that way they could basically kick field goals. So if I'm Washington, that's what I'm doing. Now, obviously, the antithesis is if I'm Chicago, I get the ball first or whatever the case is, I'm establishing that run. And I'm going to run option. I'm going to run fullbacks. I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to run it down their throat. I'm going to kill that clock. And I know I can dominate that Washington defense up front because they're not that good. I want to shove it down their throats and demoralize them. First down, I want 10 yards. Boom, another first down. And I'm not talking about running sweeps or trying to get to the outside. I am talking about hammering the football up the middle. Nothing demoralizes a defense more than an offense who can literally run the ball right between the center and the guard on either side for 7, 8, 9, 10 yards a pop. And there's nothing an offensive line loves more than pushing people around during the run game. Straight up, nail them. You're forward right out of the gate. You're taking it to him, my man. And I'm blitzing the hell out of Wentz. Washington offensive line isn't that great. I'm going right after him, full throttle. I'm not letting him get the ball off. I know they're not going to be able to run the football on me. My defense is too good if I'm Chicago. So I know what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to come in fast and throw the football deep and get all over the place. No, it's not going to happen because I'm going to be too busy nailing your quarterback, which predicated upon what we've seen the last couple of weeks. My goodness. Regardless, if I'm Chicago, that's my defensive game plan. And that's my offensive game plan. And it's nothing extraordinary from what they've been doing. It is a good game plan, though. You have to work with what you've got. And I'm telling Fields, we're going to do this for 2 quarters. And then in the third quarter, the first time we get the football, play action, we're throwing it deep one good time. Because you're going to presume you're either ahead or the game is close. Because your defense is keeping you in it, which is what has been happening in Chicago. So we'll see how it all plays out. Am I going to predict a winner? No. I mean, I guess if I did, I'd probably go Washington. I mean, obviously Chicago, I think home field advantage tonight. But and I love defense, and defense still wins championships. Denver proved that to be a thing. Tampa Bay proved that to be a thing when they hammered the hell out of Patrick Mahomes. The Giants proved it to be a thing a couple different times, kept those, games low. You look at New England, traditionally they scored a lot of points in Super Bowls that they've been in. Look at that game against Philly. How many points did they have to score to come back against Atlanta? So defense still can get it done for you. It is a proven thing, but at some point, Justin Fields is going to have to make some plays. And it's going to have to be done with his arm. Look, I love running quarterbacks. Nobody loves the option play more than I do. And I've always said that when it's run correctly, I don't care if it's in the NFL, college, high school, D2, whatever the case is. When it is done correctly, it is the most unstoppable play in all of football, especially when you can go triple option pass. Man, I'm telling you what, or even just option pass. When you can go option pass, it is lightning football. Guys are open deep. They're one-on-one. There's nobody out there. You got a corner on an island all by himself. Just run that 9 route, man. Take it to the inside, deep on the post. Money. But if the play is there, Fields has got to get the ball to him. And that's the bottom line. So, All right, everybody. I am Drew Duncan. This was the Sync 57 Sports Show. Quick recap. Draymond is just getting fined, man. No suspension. I don't hate to say I told you so. It's not even really to brag. It's really not. It's just you have to look at this stuff a little more independently. And I think sometimes we just have a tendency to just jump the gun on things. And I try really hard to not be that guy, to just not jump the gun. I think it was RG3 who was like, oh, man, if Devontae Adams is getting misdemeanor, what's going to happen with Draymond Green? Well, now you know. Not a damn thing. So how about them apples? Washington, Chicago tonight. Washington, I think if they want to win this football game, they got to come out quick, fast, hard, put the gas down, make Chicago be one-dimensional. Fields isn't going to beat you with his arm. Conversely, if I'm Chicago, obviously I'm relying on that defense, and I'm running some option plays. I'm running it down their throat. I'm going right up the middle. I'm trying to demoralize that defensive front, and eventually I suck in that defense, take a couple of shots downfield, see what I can get out of it. If I'm Chicago, I need the score to be low. If I'm Washington, the more points I put up, the more I know I have a better chance to win, because Chicago's not that team. They're not going to run up 40 on you. At least we haven't seen it yet. So, and then the ACC, again, the commissioner, Phillips, he says, well, we'll have it done by 2024. I would really love to see it done by next season, to be honest. Yeah, it should have been done like this from the beginning. I have, it's almost like a game plan. Like, we'll just put it out there and then later on we'll do it. Let's see how happy people are. Well, people are still not happy. And I understand you can't please everybody, but I'm going to tell you something. 4 teams was never going to work. It just wasn't. My goodness. All right, everybody. I am Drew Duncan. This was the Sync 57 Sports Show. And as always, take care of yourselves and stay safe.